Good morning. I hope I got that sound turned off now. Good morning, Miss Brenda. I wasn't sure, and I wasn't sure because I wasn't sure you felt like it. And thank you for being. I just now remember to send Marcus his link, so hopefully he finds it and joins us soon. Oh, you know what? It's Flag Day, and I didn't get a flag to even hang on the porch. Damn it! Coffee's not as good as yesterday's. Yesterday's was primo, which is an old word for really good. Good morning, Miss Carol. It's so good to see you. Oh, I need to turn that out. That ought to be better. No wonder it sounded funny. I hope this morning finds you and yours well. If I don't forget, I'm going to send you a note after the show. I got a question. Maybe I'll even send it. I could send it right now because I'm not that busy. I'll just send you a DM. It's not the right tune. I just was listening to the French national anthem. Which I always sort of like, the French national anthem, but it's a kind of bloody. It's sort of a bloody song if you listen to the words, which most of the time you don't hear. And it made me think of an ugly thought, and I'm not going to say it. Well, it's been, never mind. Anyway, it may just be us three today. I was just telling Brenda Carol, and just about to talk about you. Good morning, Dave's Disney Dreams. Welcome in, buddy.
You gonna take my name in vain?
Well, I was going to say that darn near screwed up and didn't send you the link. Is what I was going to say.
Well, I was late anyway, so I just opened it.
Oh, so you didn't know? Well, forget that. I sent it to you days ago.
You already labeled it as whoops, late link.
Oops, I screwed up. It's hard to lie when you tell on yourself up front.
Good morning, everybody.
That's the thing about another thing about lying. You got to make sure you didn't already tell something that's going to get you in more trouble, or at least prove you are indeed lying. Hey, I just found a. Well, I didn't just find. This don't mean anything to anybody but me. I just found this. I got to get it framed.
I found this.
Well, it was amongst my stuff. I don't know. Can you read that?
University of Tennessee College of Agriculture, Science, and Natural Resources, Rehabilitation Corporation of Tennessee Scholarship.
Something I got while I was in school and I'd forgotten about
Timothy Darnell Pruitt.
it. Darnell from Yale County. How'd that go? She was from Was she from Darnell?
She was from Darnell, Yale County.
Yale County, but it was Yale County.
Yeah, Dardanelle, which I had friends
out near you, where you were. Yeah.
Yeah, right across the river from me.
Yeah, where the nuke plant is.
Where the Nuki plant is, but you got where we lived, you had to drive like 20 miles to get to Dardanelle because you had to go over the bridge
around the lake, yeah.
At Russellville. And then you
Good morning, Chuck.
Then you were on the south side of the river, the Arkansas.
The Arkansas River.
And the mountains you saw in front of you were the Washitas.
Where you used to catch moccasins and pick up
lots of bitey and
you guys were up there sampling fish, weren't you?
My brother that matriculated from the same university, he just wrote a story called Smitten and Bitten.
Oh, really?
And it's all about his adventures with a great big old cottonmouth.
Which brother are you talking about?
And a little blonde gal. Creekmore.
Oh, okay. Where do you put that? That something I can read?
I can send it to you when he gives me the okay, okie dokie.
Yeah, I'd love to read it.
It's hilarious. It's like reading McManus because he writes kind of like McManus, and he was smitten with a blonde gal that worked for the BOR or something,
and bitten by something else.
And she was doing a snake presentation, and she needed a cottonmouth.
Oh.
And he was out chasing squirrels or some such, and and found a great big old giant mouth. And it bit him, and Buford Red Tatum, who was our fisheries professor, made the comment, "Did that snake bite you, boy?" When he was taking it out of it, we had a great big old aquarium in the fish room.
So you guys were out there at the same time?
No, he graduated like 2 years before I got there. Thank God, we would never have survived.
Well, I didn't think you.
We're pretty close to not now. It's just, that snake bite you, boy.
That snake bite you, boy. How did he handle that bite? Hey, Dave.
Saying it sounds like I have another cold. The ranch owner that I ride for mostly has a saying: never go to town.
Oh, yeah.
When you go to town, you pick up epizooties. And I was at a funeral last weekend, and I picked this fun thing up, and the Timothy hay is blooming on my property everywhere, and I'm allergic to that. And there are times
Another
where it's
funeral.
kind of hard to breathe.
Did you have another funeral yesterday?
I had another one yesterday, and then Dad called me last night, and I don't know if you knew Tim Milligan or not, but
Know the name. I may have met him.
he crossed over.
Was he another Marine or just
He
somebody?
was a UDT frogman
Oh wow.
from the Navy and a hard hat. I don't know if he started out in UDT and became a hard hat diver or vice versa, but he was an old swabby. Loved him like the second dad, and he was at the Bay of Pigs, and they had him and a couple of his guys deployed underwater because the Cubans were sending out sorties of boats and swimmers to do sapper work on U.S. Navy vessels. And he was so angry at the Marine Corps because they were standing on the fantail of the ship and
Yeah, they didn't go in.
picking those Cubans off as quick as they got in the water. And he didn't get to do nothing. Because he was going to come up from the depths like a big old snapping turtle and have them.
Oh yeah. Huh.
And he and Dad would get to arguing about that at a rendezvous or something. It was hilarious.
Well,
It wasn't hilarious for the Cubans because they all ended up gone.
well, the ones that were trying to repatriate, go back into Cuba we kind of left them standing on the beach. But I had a friend that was actually down there too, and he got sent down as he belonged he belonged to a very special secret kind of air wing that was created during that time, and they flew A-26 medium bombers, which were one of the fastest bombers that was built for World War II, and they were still using them right up to the early 60s for stuff like this. And he was an engine mechanic, or that's what he did. But he was down there. They deployed them into one of those back then, what was out in the middle of nowhere, former Air Force bases, and they were sitting on the ramp with fully loaded airplanes, bombs, and munitions to go in and attack Cuba when the I don't know what you call them, the revolutionaries at that point went back in. They weren't really. They were kind of go back, but these guys never got the orders to go in. Just kind of like,
Yeah, nobody did.
right.
I mean, the Cuban, the folks from Cuba that were allied with us, they went in,
Yeah, they
and then
went
they
in.
just like left them holding the bag and like,
Yeah,
good luck with that. Fidel, he'll treat you well.
which
Didn't happen.
it's screwed up. That's a whole nother topic for another show, probably. But the whole thing was a screwed up mess. I mean, we were the guy that Hitler. Shit, I got Hitler on the mind. The guy that Castro overthrew wasn't a whole lot better than he was, but he was friendlier to all the other countries around like us, and we were sort of backing him. That was just a mess. That guy's name was Harold Manning, and I wish I knew. I'm sure he's probably passed over because he was older than me then, so I'm guessing he's not around. But I'd love to find out. He was an interesting guy, and when I left when I left Appalachian, I worked for Appalachian Flying Service back then, which was at Tri Cities Airport. My
Right.
first real paying job as an aircraft mechanic, and Harold was one of my mentors there, if you will. He was such a good engine man, and I went back to see him a couple of times after I left and went to Nashville. I went up when I was in town. I went up and had a cold beer with him. he Harold liked his beer, but he wasn't going to pay much for it. So he always drank the cheapest stuff he could find at the store. So you never really knew what you were going to get when you went over there, but you could guarantee it wasn't going to be anything pricey. He figured it was going through him too fast for that. He was drinking a lot of it, and he didn't want to pay too much. Harold went and did a lot of things. Man, he would have been an interesting guy for you to meet, and even your dad maybe, because Harold spent a lot of time in the jungles of Southeast Asia too, mainly at Air Force bases. But he was over there at the same time.
Yeah.
And, was over there. He was he told me a story one time. I won't remember all the details now because it's been so long ago. But he told me a story about they used to go to a barber. There was a barber in whichever city they were close to at the time. It might have been Saigon. He said one day he went in there and got his hair cut, and he left. He got finished, left, and passed another guy going in, and that guy was a sapper. Back before people talked about suicide bombers, and he
Right.
blew the whole damn barbershop up.
Excuse
So
me.
Harold, he just missed that one by about that much, and he he saw a lot of interesting stuff in his life. So I hope he passed well if he's gone. If he's not gone, I need to go up and look for him. I think he had a son by the same name, but I never did meet him. I could probably look him up, but he was just a really interesting guy. He went into he had two careers, two different military careers. He went in. I think he was in the Marines, and then when he came out of the Marines, he joined the Air Force, I believe, and he spent the rest of his life in the Air Force. Not life, but he spent another 20 years or so in the Air Force, and then he retired from there and came to work, and he ended up with us.
And
Or
that's
not us.
that is not uncommon. The uncommon route is guys that join one of the other services and then like
Then go to the
I'm
Marines.
gonna go to the Marine Corps now
Well, he
because then we could go through boot camp. The other services,
didn't make you do boot.
if you've gone through Marine Corps boot camp, you don't have to go through their boot camp. You just like enter the service, but it's not true the other way around.
New cup today, or a different cup. I'm trying to.
What am I looking at?
Your weapon, sir, it will kill. Anyway, he didn't.
Forged in fire cup.
Yep, forged and fire cup. I got two of them. Broke handle off both of them. I had to reglue both of them. He didn't leave the Marines to go into the Air Force, but he left. He got out when his time came, and he wasn't planning on making a career out of it to begin with. But he got out, and I think he was out for a little while, and then decided he'd just soon go back in the military and earn a living that way. And he ended up signing up with the Air Force. But yeah, he spent a lot of time in, I think, Thailand and South Vietnam. Oh no, he was at another interesting country nearby that nobody. Again, one of those nothing that back then nobody knew anything about. He was in Laos.
Oh yeah.
His group got deployed to Laos. They were really undercover.
So they were running black op crap for SOG or somebody.
Yeah, they were doing that kind of stuff. They were doing close ground support for some group there, and he worked.
Yeah, which would be MACV SOG.
Yeah,
Super duper Green Berets.
that's something you mentioned a minute ago about the guy that passed away. A lot of people don't realize, but the SEALs started as frogmen.
Well, they were UDT guys, underwater demolition teams. They did mapping. They did, initial beach landings.
Right.
I know
They
when
usually
I think when the boys landed on either Iwo or maybe Tarawa. When the Marines hit the beach, there were signs like stuck in the sand. This beach landing is provided to you by underwater by UDT.
yeah, a lot of people don't realize those
They
guys
mapped
went
those
inside
bottoms so
before.
that people wouldn't, and maybe they started mapping the bottoms after Tarawa because that was such a goddamn mess. They beats or they put so many of those landing craft on reefs, and then the guys had to walk in like a mile through
Right,
water,
way too far out.
and the Japanese were shooting at them the whole time, and yeah, it was a bloodbath. But anyway,
Good morning,
I don't
Diana.
mean to take
Welcome.
us down that road at all.
Well, anyway, they were quite.
But
They
you brought up funerals, and I've been to too many
well,
recently.
yeah. Well, I was
My
just saying.
wife's been to even more than me.
Well,
So,
I was just commenting that you'd have been to even more crowd groups of people than just last weekend. You've been in another one. I was thinking maybe not as big.
yesterday,
Yeah, you said there was.
it was outside in the open air, and
That's better.
and it was really hot.
Maple bacon. Good morning,
It
Mike.
was like 87 degrees or some godforsaken number.
Really, back there, it's been that. It was that hot here yesterday too.
It's just
Oh, we had an interesting
I
little.
just walked outside and it feels like I'm in southeast Ohio or somewhere.
Not
It's like
humid.
it's humid and
Oh no.
it's hot already, and it's pretty early in the morning here.
You can
So
get some. You can get some moisture the way we get it.
I can the sky has got that odd kind of foggy look to it this morning. Hopefully we get some storms.
Brenda, start it. Brenda, look at your phone and email me or text me a picture. One of the pictures I took this morning of the cloud cover. Look at them and pick the one you like the best, and send it to me because I'm gonna post it, show it off. Well, or show it, not show it off, please.
What did I do with my phone?
And you had humidity. That's just not right.
Well, it's not,
I-
especially this time of year. It's just not normal.
yeah, well, I know. When you say it was humid, I wonder how high it was.
Well, I could tell you if I could see my deal in there. It's
Uh,
been, I mean, we've been in the low 20s for a while now, and it's not that today.
I'm trying to see if I can tell what it is in my. I got a humidifier. I've got a dry bulb type reading here for humidity in the.
There's one my wife took night before last.
Oh wow, that is no, that's good. That's it. That's cool.
That's looking east towards Green River. And we didn't get any of that moisture, but they did.
What are we talking about this morning, Mike? We're going to talk. Well, right now we're just talking about we're BSing for a minute while people, meander in. But we're talking about the trade industry in the North American continent and how it dealt with how much glass beads influenced that, and then how much and a few other little things I threw in there because you know me, I can't just stop at one. But um, hang on a minute, I'm going. Oh yeah, I'm gonna put this on my computer and then I'm gonna show it to you. Anyway, the I was gonna tell you something else. We had a little.
We took that photo, or she took that photo, right? I had to call them outside. I'm like, you got to come out here and look at this light. And then big old thunder boomers are building up to the east of us, and it was just before sundown. Very cool.
So basically, what you had there was the sun reflecting off that from the west, reflecting off that cloud.
Exactly. Yeah, because the sun was low to the west. Almost, it was almost dark. It was probably, I bet it was 9 o'clock, maybe 8:30 p.m.
All right, let me see if I can open this now. Brenda, I got something about Uncle Afton today on my email. I'm gonna share it with you after a while so we can look it up and see if it's anything we haven't seen before. Oh, I sent a pic to me. Now let me figure out how I can what I need to do here. Okay. Um,
You're too old to figure it out, dude.
don't you say that about me.
And so am I.
Well, that helps a little bit,
It's not. Yeah.
but nothing personal,
We
huh?
don't we don't we don't come out of the womb knowing how to like use a cell phone or something.
Oh, that's true. We don't. We didn't. Okay, I got it now. Let me see if I can do all my other tricky tricks. Um, oh, where am I at? I lost myself. There I am. Anyway, the Mike, we got to talk before we get to. Hey, John, welcome in. The surf bum has arrived. You been fishing, John, or is it? Yeah, it's surely fishing season, isn't it? This is what it looked like down the road from us today. Look at these clouds. Look how low that is.
Oh,
I mean, that's just brushing in the trees, and you can't even see the top of the ridge
well,
back.
I can feel the like Iroquois coming out of the wood line on
Yeah,
that
right
one.
down, right up here. I'm pretty sure I saw
They're
three.
just about to hit you. And John, yeah, he was way too young. He was way too young.
Anyway, that was this morning. So I was out on the porch. Went out on the porch to put up a doorbell, and finally got the stupid thing mounting. Have I ever mentioned that? And I'm going to say this about my own house, but if I ever mentioned that I'm not the biggest fan of vinyl siding in the world,
No, I thought you were going to say technology.
well, sometimes technology is.
People can like knock on your door, bump, 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 bump. You don't even need a doorbell.
Well, that's true, but we're not always at the front of the house, and we don't always hear it. And um, I
Heck,
had another reason.
I can't even hear a doorbell anymore. So,
Well, this one's pretty loud, and it rings on the phone. That's why it's a. I mean, it looks like this. So,
uh-oh, what happened to John?
well, now last week he cut the end of his finger off.
Really? He said he's trying to heal. He cut the end of his finger off.
Well, not the whole thing, but he was cutting fruit and cooking last week one day, and he whacked his finger.
Chopped into. He was trying to do the Genzu.
Yeah, and he ginzued the end of his finger right
Like,
into the salve.
oh, I got to move my hand. I got to move my hand.
This is not a story you should tell about everybody, but a buddy of mine used to work at the one of the famous chain top seafood restaurants around the country, and another guy was working on the salad bar one night back when they had things like that, and he was chopping away and chopping away and chopping away, and then he suddenly realized that the tip of his finger was gone, and I think he left it, so I don't know who found that. They never knew who found that fingertip.
I never have. I am the only male in my immediate family, all the way down to the first cousin level, that has all of his fingers still. they're busted and they're scarred, but I've never, knock on wood, I've never lost one.
Mm. Yeah, I've got a lot of cut ones, but not. John, are you saying that Mike? We'll talk about that later. Not on here. I think I know what you're talking about. John, are you saying that it's not healing up? Maybe you got carrot juice in it or something when you were chopping, or onion juice. Oh, that would have burned though.
Who was going to be talked about? There
Oh,
you go.
I don't know. Oh, nothing. Probably something else. I'll tell you later. Nope, it's not. Nope. Oh, it's healing up just fine, but it's just not healed up yet. Okay. Okay, I got a story to tell. So let me get started, and then we can BS some more here. But let me uh, let me set my show up. Da-da-ba-da-ba-ba.
Yeah, story to tell.
Yeah, I got. You're gonna like this too. It's like it'll almost be like sitting in a lodge under firelight listening to somebody read a Lodgefoot tale story.
A lodge foot.
Lodgefoot.
Oh my goodness.
Blackfoot. Jeez. That
Lodge
was
foot,
bad.
lodge foot, lodge tail.
Lodgefoot, Lodgetail.
It
Yeah,
should be
that's all they
Blackfoot,
come up with
Blackfoot,
that way.
lodge tail.
Oh me, I don't think I've ever said that before.
But
Okay,
it,
I'm gonna
but it
try.
was funny.
Uh,
But it was funny.
that was funny. So what we're going to talk about today is primarily beads and how that affected Native American culture in its own way, or their art, which I don't know. I guess they would have considered it art. I mean, what, Mark? When you think about somebody beading something or quilling it to for,
It was art.
I mean, it had to be art, wouldn't it? Even though it was on their regular clothes. I mean, it was an everyday thing.
It was art.
Well, not an everyday
And
thing.
they didn't wear it.
Yeah.
They only wore that stuff when it was a fancy occasion.
Well, that's why I said I backed up. It's not.
When you rode back into the village after you just plundered and raided your neighbor,
This
you
this
put that fancy stuff on then.
then right. Then you wore it to show off a little bit. I got a snotty nose today
But
too.
I don't think they wore it every day. I think they were plain
No,
Jane most days.
well, it was too valuable, even for me.
And you, you stood out more if you had all that fancy garb on.
True. Okay, guys, I need some input. I mean, this is my new thumbnail, at least for this summer, or the background is, and the fonts are, and
You're
the
not
layout's a lot.
you're not broadcasting it, buddy.
Oh my God! Why do I forget to do that? I swear I thought I hit send or do, but instead of hitting do, I hit don't. Apparently, I almost shared the wrong one. Then there.
There you go.
Now you can see it. So this is my new summer background, and I'm in different fonts, and there's a different layout here. So send me if you don't like it, or if you do like it, or if you think I need to send me. I mean, let me know because I'm probably gonna stick with it this summer, and I kind of like it, and I didn't. I thought about using something similar before, but I just instead I used the smaller picture of the teepee. But I don't know. This one's not got everything in it that we would have had if Mark and I were there, but a lot of it is stuff we would have liked to have had if it was our way of doing it. But there is something kind of, I just realized sitting here looking at it. You know, if you're looking at that photograph as we set the bed on our left would have been mine, and this one over here would have been Mark's, and that buffalo broke back there in the
And
very
that big fancy one in the back, that was
that
Daddy.
would have been his dad's, because that's how it worked.
That's
That was
exactly.
partially so that the guys on the side could fetch firewood, tend the fire, and do all that stuff while the master and chief sat back there and told us what to do
And directed us to
and directed us. Correct. I
Staff,
really like this picture because
Staff Sergeant Zorn's USMC was telling us, "Why don't you fetch some firewood? Why don't you fix up? Why don't you move those lodge flaps? Why don't you?
yeah, Mark, go out there and adjust that smoke flap a little
Could
bit.
you adjust that smoke flap and jiggle the antenna while you're out
To
there?"
which Mark might have said something like, "But Dad, it's pouring rain out there." And Dad was, "Yeah, but it's smoky in here. Go out there and adjust it."
Go out there and fix it.
And he might have turned to me and said, "Tim, read us a story." In which I would have picked up that Lodgefoot tale book, the Blackfoot Lodge Tales, and I would have read a story. Or by Cheyenne Campfires was another favorite.
Or a Patrick
Or
F.
Patrick
McManus.
McManus. That's exactly right. I got to do that. I need to just sit here and read some of Pat's stuff one morning, just not do anything else. Just maybe it's not funny to everybody, but by God, it is to me. I guess it's because I've been that close to so many of them things, So many of his stories are just
It's
like,
the killer bat. It's the killer bat. It's the killer. Yeah.
so anyway, the story, well, first, business as usual. Please consider hitting the like button. Or hell, hit the unlike button if you don't like me, and that'll show somebody was here. Subscribe to the channel and become a shiner.
Well, we're up to 8 now. Now we got to leave 8 words instead of 7.
Well, 7 or 8. I just put 8. I couldn't. I knew it was at least 7.
I got to go fetch a dog. Hang on. You
All
go
right,
ahead.
go
You
right
go
ahead.
ahead.
I'm not going to tell the story till you get back, though. And leave us a comment if you don't mind. I'd like to see what happens if I get some comments, just to see if it. I'm not sure who I'm thinking it would present to, but it might present to somebody. Anyway, yeah, this lodge has got some really cool things in it. Since we can see a little bit more of it here in this photograph. But on both sides, these round cases, those are what some people might call a war bonnet case. The headdresses that you see so often in TV, movies, and on TV and in movies with all the feathers and all that, which was not something they wore into battle. That's all wrong. But that's what they would keep them in. That's a case for that. That's a war bonnet case. And then these other square things back here are basically what were some people might call Plains Indian luggage. That's parfleches, and they're made out of rawhide and decorated and hung around the lodge. And that's what they stuffed their pemmican or their jerky or their underwear and all that stuff in.
There's a
Okay. What?
just looking at the war bonnet case.
Isn't that interesting?
Mine's not going to be near that big around, but
No. And I'm thinking, I'm trying to decide if it's that or I'd like to have a boat.
we'll just put you in a parfletch, dude.
Huh?
We'll just seal you up in a parfletch.
That'll work. Actually, I'd like a bouquet. A nice little bow case would be kind of cool. Anyway, that's a whole nother topic. Maybe someday we'll talk about that. So today is my story. So sit back, my children, and hear the tale. It won't mean much to everybody, but it'll mean something to Mark. And I don't know, maybe nobody will even care. But it has to do with this whole scene in a way, and it has something to do with the topic today in a way. Many years ago, The people throughout the world hunted and trapped and raised beef and pigs and goats for their meat and their milk and, yes, their hides. But the day came when all the hidey beasts were gone, and the world still needed the leather created from their hides. Men and women searched the world over, and none of these well, I got some letters missing. None of those animals existed any longer. What were they to do? Oh my. Then one day a young boy was walking through the forest near Naugatuck, Connecticut, when he stumbled upon what appeared to be a freshly removed hide of a beastie. But this young man had never seen such a hide before. He searched the woods and soon found a cave, the entrance to which was hidden behind some brush and tree limbs. He heard something inside the cave and he started to enter the cave when suddenly he caught the glimpse of a mouthful of huge teeth. He nearly soiled his undies and quickly ran away very fast. When he got close to home, his neighbor, Sally Smith, stopped him and said, "Hey, Scaredy Pants, where are you going so fast?" Scaredy Pants was the name she had given him before when he ran away just as fast when she had tried to kiss him one time. He stuttered and stammered and said, "A cave, a monster." That's when Sally stopped him and said, "Whoo, you need to go change your clothes, then come back and tell me about this." Soon to me, that was funny. Soon he returned carrying a flaming torch. Well, okay, it was a big flashlight, but off they went. Sally had also armed herself with a broom handle and a trash can lid for a shield. She was ready. Into the cave they went, and that's when it happened. The huge, sort of ugly beastie jumped out in front of them and yelled, "Boo!" Sally whacked it across the knees and it immediately threw up its arms and said, "I surrender." Then it grinned those and exposed all those big teeth little Billy had seen before. Then suddenly they saw a dozen or even three more of these beasties dancing and playing in the back of the cave. Turns out they were friendly. And Billy had just been a scaredy cat after all, according to Sally. Alert, this story is from early 1930, and you could call someone a scaredy cat back then. Turned out to be the first ever discovered Naga beast. The really great thing was the Naga was about to fix the world's hide shortage problem. You see, the Naga sheds its skin twice a year, and it does it painlessly and cleanly. A shed hide was ready to be used. Kaloo, problem solved. Now, this is sort of a true story. And that's the Naga beast. The Naga is ugly, but his vinyl hide is beautiful. You and I've talked about the Naga beast, but I never knew that there was a story. And people in the muzzleloading business are the people that make things out of hides and still sew beads on and just do different things. We've used to joke about the hide of the Naga, but this actually came from a story. It was a publicity campaign started by the Uniroyal Tire and Rubber Company.
In 1930?
In 1936 is when it first became a public thing. And they had created an artificial leather, partially because such things were starting to be in high demand. You know, wars were spooling up all over the world at that point. And they had invented this stuff. Of course, it's probably another use of rubber that they couldn't afford to use, but they made it. And it's still around as far as I know. You don't hear much about Naga hide furniture anymore, but it's still out there, I'm sure. It's a vinyl kind of product, and it was created. And they created this story. They hired somebody to go out and create a story for advertising. And this was one of the things. This was a full spread. You can see double page spread in a magazine of some sort. And as it turns out, and I don't remember this. If anybody else does, please say so. Apparently, these things were kind of popular, and they sold in all different colors, but they all look just like this guy. And honestly, if you go online right now and you go like to eBay, you can buy these things that are from the 60s, 50s, 60s, or say I think 60s and 70s is when these became sort of popular.
The
And
Naga?
Naga, yeah, Naga beasts. And you can actually find them. I found a blue one and a brown one and a green one. They're still for sale, and some people are asking quite a bit of money for them.
Well,
But I did know your dad.
my wife just figured out that she had about $500 worth of trolls
Oh, really?
in the up in the upstairs room.
You might want to sell them while they're worth something because those things have a habit of doing. Those kind of things tend to go up and down, like Beanie
I thought
Baby.
you could just go to the store and buy a troll, but you can't do that no more.
Oh, really? I didn't know that
If
either.
it's a green haired one, you might get a lot of money for that.
Ooh,
I told her to send them to Jennifer and Kelly and have them auction them off.
there you go. That might not be a bad idea. Anyway, your dad, I think it was your dad that first said something to me about a Naga beast. I'm not sure if it was him or not, but I know that when we were at friendship and stuff, we used to joke about it all the time. When we were out doing things, we talked about the Naga.
You'd see people wearing it like it was leather.
Well, yeah, sometimes we would. That's true. But it was really a thing, and it was really not really a beast, obviously, but the story was funny because it literally says they would shed their skin 2 or 3 times a year, and it just came right off, and there was no pain involved or anything, and then you could use the hide to make a chair with, for example.
I still remember seeing them wandering around like in buckskin breeches that look just like that.
And
Naga.
and yes, everybody, we're being
with little short, like square fringes on it,
yeah.
and a big old coonskin cap, and they'd be sweating through all their clothes, and
Yeah, because it don't breathe.
I'm just like, what? You guys are idiots.
Well, some people just didn't know, and we're probably hide leather snobs in that respect, but yeah, it was.
Oh, I'm definitely a leather snob, so
I mean, I've never seen you make a Naga saddle.
no.
I'm
nor,
not sure. I'm not
nor
sure.
a pair of brain tan Naga hide leggings nor nothing like that.
I don't think Nagas are big enough to make saddle leather anyway. Oh, anyhow, I don't know. Has anybody else in here ever heard of the Naga beast?
That's just not right. I did not know we were going to talk about this.
Oh, that's all we're going to talk about. I snuck it in there because I thought I'm going to talk about the Naga. I actually ran up over this accidentally, and I can't remember what I was looking for. And Naga, it popped up, and I thought, well, I'm going to explore that. So I did, and I found out there's really a story. And they made them in different colors, Brenda, and they had whole families of them, and they were blue and green. I don't know how many different colors they made Naugahyde out of, but I know I've seen it blue or dyed, a grayish blue. And so anyway, when Marcus gets back, we'll talk about. Hey, Mark, I need a pair of moccasins. Yeah, maybe that'd help you walk better. So not that Brenda can't walk, but Brenda has had a couple. Wish her well. Oh, I don't know. I don't know if I think I mentioned last week she had to go in for X-rays. Well, that turned out to be good. No broken bones, no broken hip, thank God. No, and her knee didn't seem to be displaced or dislodged or her new knee joint. Hey, Julie McGowan, welcome in, and welcome to the. Well, you just missed the story of the Naga beast. Anyway, and that's good, but it's taken her a little while to heal up. And then yesterday, She fell twice more, she told me.
Brenda did?
Yeah, I'm going to have to put a bubble wrap around her for sure.
You know, have you ever seen those? They call them knocker balls that you put over your body
Yeah.
that you can go fight a bull. Like you can
Yeah.
go in and like have the bull toss you about.
And you roll down here. There's people here that have them. You can roll down a hill in them.
Yeah, you can do all kind of cool stuff, and you're totally.
What do you think, Brenda? You want to get one of those balls?
Most of them only go down to about your waist, though, so your legs are still.
I've seen bigger ones than that. The ones they have here, they can fit a whole person in. Oh,
Sure.
and it's actually spelled Nauga because it's from Naugatucket, Connecticut. At least that's what it read. That's what I read about it. Maybe Naugatucket's not a real place, but I looked it up just this morning to double check because I just wrote that story this morning. I mean, somebody wrote that story this morning, and that's why it had some errors in it. It was quickly done. But anyway,
Brenda asked if she could mow in the knocker ball.
might be a little hard to do that.
If you're using a push mower, you could.
Yeah, I guess you could. If your feet stick out enough and you can get your arms out of it, yeah, I guess.
And your arms can come out of them. But I've seen guys like fly. Well, I've seen guys fly through the air without them.
Yeah.
A long way. And I've seen guys fly through the air with them. And the knocker ball makes the landing way better, and the hit and the landing way better.
Brenda, Tina, you see what Tina said? I hope she's right. Maybe that's good, Tina. I'm going to hold her to that. 3 times the charm. So no more falling, Brenda. You hear?
No more falling.
She actually was able to mow a little bit yesterday, ride the mower. So she was starting to heal up. And now I'm not sure. Because
So here's the deal. You're storing the mower in the ramp jump area.
no, it's behind the house with a cover on it right now.
That's all I'd do is like put a tarp over it and like you're good.
It's not in the barn. Although I think she has gotten it in and out of the barn before by herself. But right now I'm just, yeah. But see, here's the thing. She seems kind of safe on the mower because she don't seem to fall off of it. It's when she gets off the mower that I worry about her. Well, I think we had Naugahyde chairs I'm sure we did, Tina. That was, I mean, it was on a lot of furniture back when we were younger. I just don't.
We might have a couch and chair right here in the living room right now.
Well, actually, I'll be honest with you. I've got a leather couch right here that I'm sure part of is
Naga.
Pretty sure.
Well,
I don't think they call it that.
We bought this couch and chair. You've sat on the couch.
I've slept on the couch.
You've slept on that couch, and it was leather as they sold it. Like this is covered in cowhide or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that they're accurate. I've had to. We have a lot of puppies that come through this house, grand dogs and our own dogs, and a couple of them chewed the corners off the back of my wife's chair.
Ah.
And so I covered them with brass tacks and bison hide. That's, I know, for real buffalo hide.
Uh-huh.
And I only needed to do one corner, but I did both of them just so they'd match.
And so they'd have something to chew on.
And I'm not sure the leather is actual. It may be from this creature.
Yeah, I'm not sure all the couch is either because I've been in the bottom of it, and
it don't look like leather on the inside to me. But maybe they ran it through some kind of a press or something. I don't know.
Well, that's possible. Yeah, put a backing on it or something. You never know. Anyway, that's the story of the Naugahyde and the Nauga Beast. And it was made by Uniroyal Tire Company. That one I did not. That surprised me. I did
Of
not.
course it was.
Of course it was. Okay, we're going to talk about the bead trade in North America, and we're going to start with what natives used for decoration and adornment. I think that's a real word. Before the Europeans got here. Well, yeah. Let's just say it that way. Uh, New World natives used many natural things to create jewelry and ornamentation for their clothing. To the right, we got an example of abalone shell that's been cut and turned into a necklace. And you can imagine that those kinds of things took a fair bit of labor. And when you're a native group that hunts for a living and gathers, you don't have a lot of time for that sort of stuff. So when you do it, it's pretty valuable to them.
And I think that when they really like periods of history that they were able to do this kind of stuff, they were probably in tall cotton, for lack of a better term.
Yes, Tina, I think that is, you are right. Some people do call it pleather, and I have heard it. Yeah, I've heard it called pleather or vegan leather, which those are things that aren't always in my vocabulary. Not to be mean, but they're just not. Excuse me, I can't breathe either. So give me just a moment. Okay, I got halfway through that operation, and my inhaler or my inhaler broke. Quit pumping.
Uh-oh.
Not inhaler, but my spray. Okay, so and at the bottom is a effigy of a bird creature of some sort. I think that's just wood, I think, and that came out of the Southwest.
No, it's carved out of a fossil. Says right there.
Oh, a bracket. Excuse me, I forgot what I did. Put that in there myself, and I should have remembered that. Yes, and this was posted from one of the National Park Services museums out there. But again, it's like the shells. It shows different things that they used. Of course, they continue to use things like carved effigies because that wasn't something you could buy or trade for. Well, excuse me, not with the white man. And then they
Yeah,
had,
and like I was saying, I think they did this stuff when living was good.
yeah, I do too. I think
Lots of food, lots of spare time.
no war going on.
The boys were out killing bison or whatever, and living was good, or the fishing was good, or whatever. If they were in abalone country, I assume they were eating salmon.
Yeah, you're probably right there.
And living was good, and then you have time to do art.
All right. Oh,
And
in the East,
when living's tough, it's like, no, I got no time to do any of that stuff.
yeah, Lewis and Clark talk about this in their journals. How the fact that once they crossed the Rockies far and got over to the Northwest Coast Indians, well, where they went out over there, those Indians were by comparison wealthy. You
They
think
were
about it. You look in the East, natives in the East used birch bark canoes or dugout canoes,
right.
and they were both made fairly simply, but they weren't adorned, they weren't decorated, they were just a tool. You get to the West Coast and you find these big outrigger canoes that are decorated and carved, and these giant totem poles that are decorated and painted and carved. And one of the reasons they figured that out was these people had lots of food. They didn't have a food problem. And they had time to create a pretty canoe, not just a canoe.
Masterpieces.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. And so it makes a huge difference. they're kind of wealth. So I'm sorry. Hello, Julie, Brenda, blah blah blah. Danny was Danny was ramming all night long, so I didn't get any rest. What do you mean by that, Tina? What he was ramming? Or am I reading that wrong? I hope that doesn't mean Danny's he may be adjusting, having a problem, but I hope he's doing okay. So anyway, I don't know where Mark left to. I'll go ahead and start this next part. I know he's going to have something to say. Another way that the Western Indians, and this map depicts kind of where this practice occurred. Dentalium shell, or these little bitty tusk looking or horn looking shells, and these are small. Some of them are longer than others, but they're hollow and they're pointy, and they look kind of like a fang tooth maybe, and they're not much bigger than that. They're smaller diameter, of course, but I mean longer. And but you only found them in the areas of, well, they only found them off the northwest coast, period. That was the only place that you could find these in the wild. And I was reading last night, Mark, you may already know this, but these things, not only were they just out there, but they were like 30 to 60 feet depth usually. So they had to actually figure out a way to dive down and get them.
Right.
Which I thought was fascinating, that early natives were diving that deep. I mean, I guess divers were the same all over the world. I guess they learned how to do that. But I just thought that
if you go to the New Guinea or somewhere like that, there are free divers that they can spend 5 minutes under the water, you know. Did we freeze up?
He's doing pretty good, Tina. If he's doing all that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Anyway, people in North America would have been doing the same thing if they wanted something.
True. So anyway, these shells, because they were only found in that little part of, the Northwest, were very valuable in the early trade amongst Native Americans, but they only got to maybe the edge of the Great Lakes on the upper side, and the Great Plains basically in the continental United States part. And as you can see by this map down along the west coast, but they were highly sought after, and let me show you why, or some of the ways they were used. Here's some examples. These, and let me open up my notes because I have some important notes to share.
They sewed those dentaliums all over those dresses. Good gosh, that's a bunch of them.
That is a huge amount, and
you can see that some of them get bigger than others. I mean,
why can I not do this?
The gal on the right there's got really long dentalium shells on her dress.
There we go. Yes, and there are literally thousands of these shells to create these dresses. And again, they weren't. This is not something. Now maybe a coat or a cape like the lady in the center might have on. That might be they might use that a little more often, but mostly these were used for ceremonies, perhaps whatever they considered marriage, or to dance to them, for whatever reasons they were celebrating or dancing, birthdays or, whatever. And so they were really important. I may have another image here. Let me see if I have one more. Nope. But I thought I'd put in my notes, and apparently I did not. Some of these guys were literally, there's I read something that said they thought there might have been as much as 100 and something thousand of these used in one particular dress that's in a museum.
Wow.
It's just unbelievable. And the work, and yeah, that took a long time. And you're using a shell that is valuable. I mean, it's like money to them. They traded for these things because they could not get them. And the further east you got, the more valuable they became. They also used porcupine quills. And this is basically a rough sketch of, if you can see it clear enough, porcupine habitat, which is the vertical lines going, or almost vertical, or going left to right, and they're darker, more of a black color or a gray color. And then where it overlaps with these horizontal green hatches is areas where they were used. The tribes that used these things that were outside the porcupine's normal habitat. So they were traded down that far. And as you can see, they got down into northern Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois, all the way down to Oklahoma, and even down to New Mexico and Arizona. Of course, down there they've got porkies in the mountains and stuff, so they were probably getting them from there. But they were a trade item.
Well, and right there where you're looking at Texas, where
Yeah,
it comes to that corner of Texas, there's porkies all over that country today. I don't
down
know
in
about.
here.
Yeah, my brother-in-law's ranch is right there.
So there's porkies on that ranch.
Yep.
Do you think that's a modern expansion, or do you think they've always been there?
I don't know. I know we found them in all the way down to northern West Virginia and western Maryland recently.
So they're
And I
expanding.
don't know if they're expanding or, and then of course in the Southwest, I mean, I found porcupines down there in the boot heel of New Mexico all the time. They were
Oh, really?
they were a dime a dozen down there.
Wow, that seems like a huge drop. I mean, that's
And
way
then,
down.
and then Wyoming, I'm trying to see the map here.
Well, they've got them in Wyoming all the way out to here. If you can see my
Yeah, seeing that should be totally occupied, like the entire state.
the entire state. Yeah, okay. And
Um,
that's been that way as long as you've lived out there, right?
yeah, I mean, you go out there in the plains and you'd find a porcupine that was big as a 50-gallon drum out there in the prairie. They're actually less common over here where we have trees than they were in the prairie.
Really? What are they eating over there?
Grasses,
Okay.
digging up tubers, eating grasses.
See, I always thought they almost exclusively ate on pine bark.
Yeah, see, that's not true at all.
Obviously, that's not true.
They will eat all kinds of shrubs. They love willows. I mean, we have them here in the yard pretty regularly because we have willows,
Yeah.
lots of willows. But I don't see them as often here as I did in the eastern part of the state where it was all just prairie.
Wow, that's crazy. That seems backwards, but okay, I get it. That does.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me either. If you grew up reading Seton or whatever, and you were
Yeah.
like, they're talking about the porcupines eating spruce bark or whatever.
Right.
Um,
Always in the top of the tree, gnawing on the.
they're always eating bark off of some conifer tree.
Yeah, I should say conifers, not just.
And I think that's just one of their diet items. They don't need it. They're perfectly happy to eat willow bark or grasses.
It's good to know. I mean, I think it's good.
They probably found them in Tennessee before.
I wouldn't doubt it. We got armadillos here now, so that's another topic.
North and
Anyway,
south, north and south meeting.
Yeah. So the natives here use quills and along with their work, and this map shows. I don't know why this says beadwork. I must have mistyped that. This was all about porcupines right here, and this is some of the stuff they did with quills. Now this one's got some. This one's got some shells in it, or some not some shells, some metal tubes or cones, and but a lot of this that you see on this, if you look close enough, you can see that there's little short flat sections of colored things or bent. And Mark's done this kind of work. You take a porcupine quill and you flatten it out first, and then you fold it to make these different shapes, or you lay them in there and you applique them, sew them down. And I mean, it's a lot of work to do this. Plus, they have to be dyed, which I think is an important part of this equation. Is porcupine quills had to be dyed to be used like this. The white ones you see on the left are natural primarily, and but all the other ones that are blue and red and yellow, those all have to be dyed. So they not only did they have to work on the quills, but they had to manufacture their own dyes, because you couldn't just go down the store and buy a box of red.
Which became a trade item, by the way.
Which became a trade item, yes.
later on, but
and I thought these are Santee Sumoccans. It says, and these photos are all out of various museums.
And those are gorgeous.
Aren't those lovely? And that's all. Well, that's mostly porky quills. Now there are some beads around this rim. I just noticed, but this all down on the toes and the top of the foot. That's all porcupine quills. I just think it's lovely. But you know, I grew up seeing beadwork like this, and then I found out, geez, they used to use porcupine quills. So I think it's amazing, because I was used to seeing something else. Well, I think beadwork done like that's amazing too. Don't get me wrong. And then the first glass beads showed up, and they think, well, they don't think, they've read that, at least as far as, I don't even know how to say this politely, as far as when Europeans first got here, which I think is highly debatable, but when Columbus came in 1492, he actually wrote down in his logbooks that he had taken stuff with him to trade with the natives, because that's what they were all about anyway. The whole reason Columbus came here was to try to find a route to the West Indies so that he could, or to the Spice Islands,
East Indies,
and the Spice Islands, as they referred to them often, and he landed in North America. But he brought beads. He said he traded red caps and strings of green glass beads, and he traded those to the natives. And then the Spanish explorer Hernando Cortez landed on the coast of Mexico in 1519, and his ships carried glass beads along with other European trade goods. The Spanish explorer Narvaez, I'm probably saying that wrong, and this in 1527, and De Soto in 1539, they all carried glass beads for trade with the natives. And these are.
Now that's interesting. I've never heard that Cortez. Anything you read about Cortez, he was just killing people.
Well, I think he did mostly, but he did do some trading.
But it's just interesting that they came over prepared to trade, not just
Well, what I remember,
murder and pillage.
What I've read, if I remember correctly, was, I don't know, in his case, I'm not saying in his case in particular, but I know they often came over here to trade or see what they could get, and when that didn't go well, then they took if they had something they wanted. Gold was one of the primary things in Central and South America. They once they discovered that the natives had gold, it was all over. But the fist fight, and but anyway, they did bring some over, and they did these beads like these, and these in particular, they believe came over with one of those guys. Let me see if I can read this real quick. These came out of museum. These actually, it's funny, interesting thing. There's a lot of these museums are not in this country. These beads were taken. Photographs of these beads were taken in Helsinki, Finland. But these beads came out of the American Southwest.
Huh.
Go figure. It's it's amazing how things get scattered around. And this is from Crazy Crow's Trading Post's catalog, but they have some research. They do have some historical stuff they've written down, and these are some examples. I'm going to get to the more common ones in a minute, but these are some of the examples. And I've got a little bit of information about what these are. If you can see the numbers, I've got the first one's number 1 are 7-layer chevron beads, and I talked about chevrons a little bit last week. In fact, most of the top row are pretty much different kinds of chevrons. Late six, the number 3 bead is also called a spio, and I get on that's the size. I guess that's not a chevron though. Now I look at it, and those are from the 1600s. Number 4 were considered French beads. They came and they were called the French ambassador beads. I'm not sure why. And they're from later. They're from the 1850s. And then there's some, number 5 is from the middle 1800s or late 1800s. Same thing with those larger chevrons over here, number 9. There's a yellow and black swirl bird, what they call a swirl bird from the 1800s. So we got different beads. So we're roughly covering a time period with bead trading from about 1492 until at least 1850. But I know they traded longer than that because there are pieces of art that were created after that that have been collected in museums, and sometimes were, I guess you could say, contracted to have made by the natives. They're still native and they're still made the same way, but they were, they asked them to make stuff, and they, they took it to museums or bought it from museum work. Excuse me.
Well, an interesting thing about all these bead types is you can find the exact same beads in Africa.
Yes.
They were trading them in Africa as well.
And unfortunately, over there, they were traded mainly in the slave trade, or a lot of them were anyway. Or that some of them were. I'm just put it that way. That was one of the things they were used for. Let me see here. And most of this stuff, including Crazy Crow's information and some others I'll have here in a minute, a lot of this stuff, they're backing this up on archaeological records where people have found these beads in different dig sites where they've all over the country where they've discovered these things, and so that's why we know about this. Then along came a group of, in this case, Britishers, is what his name would say from Andy Griffin. The Britishers created what was called the Governor and Company of Adventurers of England, trading into Hudson's Bay. They used to have great names for things, even them. And they created that, or it was incorporated May 2nd, 1670. So the Hudson's Bay Company has been around for a long time.
Not anymore.
In what way?
It doesn't exist.
I thought it still existed, but it was owned by somebody else now.
They everything that they sold that was cool, they've gotten rid of it. Blankets, etc.
Okay, so they're not doing any of that. Mike, guys, you guys go into, do you still have Hudson Bay stores? I know I read that.
It became like J.C. Penney. They're selling rayon leisure suits and crap like that, is what I heard.
Well, that could be. But this is the area that, if you look in the map on the left, it's kind of the area where they eventually expanded out to and were influencing trade, primarily in Canada. Part of this was because the French were already trading here, but the French came in through the St. Lawrence River waterway, which led them right into the Great Lakes, and their expansion to trade went from there. It extended south some, it extended north some, it went west some. So the Hudson's Bay Company people said, we're going to come in from the top and we're going to overtake them from above. So it was very, the trade competition was intense once they figured this out. And mainly this was, in this case, was about fur, primarily beaver fur, but there were lots of other highly sought pelts like otter and fox,
Fishers and
fisher, yeah, mink and all that. And you could, they traded this stuff. The Indians traded all these critters. Um, so that's that. That's how they decided to come in from above through the Hudson's Bay area, hence the name. Once they set up what they call the York factory, which I've got a dot there on the map to the right, and you can kind of see where that is on Hudson's Bay. I don't know if that's around what's the town?
Churchill.
Churchill. I don't know if that's where Churchill is. My dot probably isn't. It's not precise. It's relatively accurate, but not precise.
It's got to be close.
Yeah, it's close, but
It's a good place to get eaten by a polar bear.
Yeah, exactly. But that's where they came in from. I wonder if the polar bear came there then. Bless you. Excuse you. So anyway, that's how the beads. This is kind of where the bead conflict started. This is the English. I should have put up a map for the French, and I don't know why I didn't. And these are the kind of things they were selling and offering up to the natives. And this is from Wandering Bull's catalog and things that they sell today. And I told last week that a lot of the glass beads, the whole industry kind of started in Italy, but it spread from there in Czechoslovakia, and I think Yugoslavia was known for making beads. I know Mark dealt with Czech beads or used Czech beads. And now
I think they were pretty late in the game. They came in.
Yeah, they were. They were later in the game.
Italians and French people were making them really early.
And these are examples of size.
Some of these were made then. That like Wandering Bull or Crazy Crow sell. Some of them were made in the 1500s.
True.
You can buy a hank of beads that literally were made hundreds of years ago.
So they're still in inventory in places. And they do talk about that because both of these companies sell. I was reading something else and another company. They were all talking about the fact that there are some beads and bead colors because of what Mark just said that are no longer available, that maybe when he and I were growing up were available, or when I first started learning about beads, which was actually in my 20s or early. I mean, I knew about them, but I didn't know anything about them, if that makes any sense. It's really hard for me to show size on here, so I put that chart to give you a relative idea of kind of how the different beads are.
Yeah, so crow bead, those 9/0 crow beads.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how people are viewing the screen. On my screen, they'd be twice that size.
Hang on a minute. Let me turn it back on so I can see you. I can't see you right at the moment.
I'm here.
I know, but I've got the screen. I've got my screen covered up, and I don't want to. I had my notes. I didn't want to lose my notes this time. I keep doing that.
My wife's going upstairs to get my mom gifted us a bunch of original chevrons and trade beads.
Oh, cool. Well, I was hoping you had some pony beads and stuff handy because what beads we've got are still packed.
She had collected over the years.
Who, your mom? Mark.
Hang on.
Okay. Good morning, Kay. I didn't see you come in, but I didn't mean to ignore you either. I'm sure Monday can't come soon enough for any of you, Tina. Hopefully Monday, Carol, and the cone comes off. Oh boy, that'll be good. I missed that part. Okay, did you say your mom collected beads?
Yeah, Mom ended up with all these
Oh wow, I can't see them well, but I'd like to see them later.
beautiful beads. These are all original, like trade beads from the 1700s, 1600s.
Oh wow, I didn't realize that she had done that.
Yeah, Mom was collecting beads, and then this is my favorite right here.
Wow, that's a big string of chevrons. Wow.
Aren't they beautiful?
You know what? That string of beads right there is probably worth a couple $100
Yep,
at least.
easily.
So chevrons, I don't
And
know.
I think she got, I don't know. I don't know if she was getting those from Tim and Sharon Milligan or if she was buying them from Pat Hartless or who
Both.
got them from. But
That's cool. I didn't realize that she was doing. I think I do remember one time your dad saying something or you saying something about some chevrons for your mom, but I didn't realize she had been collecting them that long.
yeah, and you know, I'd buy them sometimes. Dad would buy them. Mom collected them and had just we got part of the collection, and other people in the family got other parts of the collection, and but we got our pick.
Good. That's good to hear. I'm glad you did.
And
So
then
anyway,
I have a bazillion of those like mustard yellow
yeah, I
beads.
like these down here. Those are hard to get now. You couldn't get them at all for a while. And I think somebody's making similar ones now, but I don't know if they're the same color.
There are a lot of the old colors are pretty hard to get.
Yeah, they are.
I gotta grab an item. Hold on.
You do that. I was going to say something while you're doing that. And one of the things about the old colors you can see, and you can see it in the beadwork, they're not shiny. They're a flatter or duller color. New beads tend to be much shinier, and that goes on a lot of new beadwork. You see that in costume dress and stuff for dancers, but it's not quite the same as the old beads.
So I did this. I don't know if we can even see it. I did this crow style.
Yeah.
Crow is in a tribe pipe bag. It's got long fringe on it, and they carried their pipes and tobacco in it, and they were always beaded different on both sides. So the other side is this, and there are thousands of beads on this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Took me a long time, and they're all old colors, the original colors.
What size beads would you say the majority of those are? Do you have any idea?
Probably 12-watt or smaller.
Yeah. Okay. That's about what I was guessing.
There's a lot of the old colors were little beads.
Yeah. Well, they were seed. They talked about that a lot. The first one seemed to have been seed beads, except for the tubes and things, which is amazing because even smaller to me is harder to make. And now, do you know? I didn't research this hard, but do you
And
know
my wife is way better at this than I am,
I've
and
seen her work?
your wife is way better at this than I am.
I wanted to show off some of her work, but I couldn't find the stuff I wanted to show.
Because you can't find your rifle case.
No, not yet. I was looking for that yesterday. I told her, I said, this is all making me really long to find that. Um, and I was trying to find that. I was trying to remember where we got the image for that, where we got the idea, and I can't remember if it was David Wright's art or if it was something Bill Golden had. I can't remember where I got that pattern idea from that case because it wasn't entirely original. I don't believe, was it, Brenda? If you're still here,
So a lot of Bill Golden's stuff was quill work.
true.
His leggings and his war shirt were like quilled.
Some of his stuff's in a museum now.
And he made Pat Tierney so mad because Pat did the work. He didn't do the quill work. He made the clothing, and he remembered like seeing like his leggings like laying in the back floorboard of the vehicle, and people were walking on them, and
Uh-oh.
he was not happy.
I bet he was not. And Bill Golden, for anybody that doesn't know, was one of the singers with the Oak Ridge Boys. Still
He's
is.
the guy that looks like Tim that was with the Oak Ridge Boys.
Longer hair now, much longer. But his beard, my beard and his beard look a lot alike, except his really does go down to his belly button. And he's still around. I'm not sure if all the other guys are still with us or not. And Bill still sings, but his name was William Lee Golden, and he got into this whole muzzleloading reenacting kind of thing back in the 80s, probably, I guess. And he used to come to rendezvous, maybe even before that, 70s, I guess.
Yeah,
And
we would see him at Friendship.
he would come to Friendship and come through the primitive camp and stuff, and everybody there just treated him like a normal. Everybody tried to treat him just like he was one of the guys. Now, some people couldn't stand it. And I mean, he was famous at that time. The Oak Ridge Boys were really booming. They were a big deal. But he just kind of got away from all that when he
was semi-recognizable.
Anyway, it's hard to show the bead sizes. Crow beads, Mark, or pony beads. Do you know where they got the name for those beads? I mean, are they actually named after the tribe, or
I don't know if they're named after the tribe or not.
I don't either. I really didn't find that written down anywhere, or at least I hadn't yet.
But they're about, a crow bead is about a quarter of an inch.
Right.
In diameter.
That's what I was going to say too, quarter inch. And everything else down there, as you can see, that 13-aught row at the bottom, there's
tiny,
at least in that.
Yeah, crow beads were used more for like necklaces and things.
Yeah, bigger stuff. And also, I think I've got some pictures.
Not a lot of stitching those to leather and using them for decoration in that manner.
So beads were the main item. I mean, one of the beads. I want to talk about this because the glass beads, how they were made, and this may sound a little silly, not a little weird, mind you. I heard Wolfie.
We got dogs running everywhere. We got grand dogs.
Ah.
I don't know how long we're going to have them. A while. The kids are out. They're off on a whirlwind adventure to the southeast.
Ah.
They're probably sitting on a beach right now.
And their dogs are with you.
They went to Mississippi because John's from Mississippi. So they went there first to see friends. Then they went to Alabama where John's parents live. They're in northern Alabama. And then they were going, I think, to the panhandle of Florida to hang out and get overly heated.
Oh yeah.
Hopefully the kids are up to their waist in ocean water right now.
Hopefully. Yeah, they probably are. So
It
anyway,
was,
along with the beads came other things, of course, that were traded and used, and still a lot of times in association with beads. I'm not leaving the bead topic. I just want to make sure everybody realizes this wasn't the only thing that's getting traded. And among these things were other trade goods like this: brass axe, bells, hair pipes, bone hair pipes, these little cones, mirrors, which may seem silly, but mirrors were a big deal. Native Americans had never seen themselves, if you will, in the same way. And of course, trade cloth, wool broadcloth or trade cloth, and blankets, which I don't think I put a picture of in here, but trade blankets were a big deal.
and those hair pipes were made in
Camel bone, weren't they?
they were
Or
made from camel bone in the Middle East and northern Africa.
so they were traded from there and brought to Europe and then brought over to trade in the Americas. And so now I'm gonna show you some examples of what they did, and this will be more commentary, and we'll just back and I'll try to run through them.
So if you've ever seen the movie Dances with Wolves, there's a scene where Lieutenant Dunbar has traded a military jacket to a guy named Wind in His Hair. And Wind in His Hair had on a breastplate made out of those hair pipes. That's what they were. They were long bone beads, basically, hole all the way to them, and they made breastplates out of them that were less effective at actually stopping arrows or bullets than one would think. But anyway,
Well, let's think about that for a minute. Just
look
about
at that
anything's better
gorgeous
than
one.
nothing. I'm gonna post the, huh?
I was just wondering. I interrupted you.
No, well, I was gonna say I'm gonna post the link. That these are all most of these are out of a museum displays in the Smithsonian, and they're collected from different things. This picture on the front is just an example. I'm gonna get a little bit more in detail. But I've got a little bit of beadwork, quill work down there at the bottom, and then I've got beadwork in the middle and beadwork on that rifle case. And mine was somewhat similar to that. It was white leather, which was going to get aged in time here, but it had beadwork on each end, kind of like that, but different designs. And then the reason I put the baskets in there was not for the basket so much as that rear basket is covered in beads. That's beaded all around. And those are probably from the Southwest. So here's some examples we'll start in the East and we'll look at these are things that came out of the Eastern tribes. I wanted to say Assiniboine. That's not right. Anishinaabe.
Anishinaabe. They're Ojibwe people.
Yeah.
Chippewa, Anishinaabe. And then that, I think that's a hood on the right side.
Yeah, the right side is a hood. It is. That's
looks
what it
like
is.
something that a Micmac or a Penobscot or somebody from the north, from very eastern part of Canada. This really elaborate beadwork like this came out of that Great Lakes to East Canada country.
And the reason I wanted to make sure I got the woodland in there before I got moved further was they used these floral designs. And once you go towards the west and the Plains Indians, they used more geometric designs. And I really like that, what they're calling a bandolier bag, I guess because of how it's made. I like the design. One side of that is so different from the other side. That's just extra work. But you see the beaded flower leaves on the top of the bag. And then I don't know if the rest, those are all beads. I just couldn't get it magnified enough. There's a lot of beads in that. Those are little teeny tiny seed beads, probably 13 odd. I don't know if there's anything smaller than that or not, but those are little. And these were collected. I've got the dates on here. Some of them were made later in even in the 1800s. Again, sometimes they ask these things to be made for examples. But sometimes when it says this was collected in 1870, it may have been made in 1820 and handed down. So that's kind of misleading in a way. Uh, but this one, it tells what it's made of. It's wool and cotton cloth, which they traded for, and of course glass beads. And the hood, silk ribbons, glass beads. Again, silk is not something in it. They didn't say it, but it's on. I think it's on wool. Well, it does say wool cloth. Excuse me. And this came out of Canada somewhere in the 1860s, 1880s. Um, really cool stuff. Here's some more examples. Huron leggings they were from the 1830s. Um, I've got a pair of these, but mine aren't that nearly elaborate. mine had some. Mine had some. I think mine had some tied stuff, maybe red cloth or something, but they didn't have any beadwork like this. These are. I said they were 1830, but they're wool, leather, silk, quill, moose hair, metal, horsehair, and cotton thread, all used in these. And I didn't say beads, but I think those are beads. Maybe those are not. Maybe that's different colors of thread and silk.
Well,
On the right, we have a breech cloth or a breech cloth.
they would do moose. They would use moose hair just like they use porcupine quills.
Oh, really? Do they
And
flatten it?
And yeah, the same technique, and that kind of quill work, if you will, is a lot finer.
Right. Moose hair.
Probably more Italian, probably a little more fragile.
Fragile. Um, in case you don't know, deer hair like this is hollow. So that's why you could flatten it like a quill. I mean, quills are hollow also, and you can flatten them out. And moose hair and deer hair, as far as I know, all deer hair and goats. The goats that Mark deals with, the antelope, not antelope, but pronghorn. Excuse me, I'll get it right. They're hollow haired too, if I'm not mistaken.
They are,
And
but
it's really unique if you
but I've
feel it.
never seen anybody use pronghorn hair for anything.
Do what?
I've never seen pronghorn hair used for anything. Maybe stuffing, but they're kind of a odoriferous animal. And a lot of that odor's in that hair. I think they did use, and the Plains tribes used them to stuff like saddle pads and pillows and things of that nature.
Hi, Michelle. Good morning. Michelle's Moments is with us. Good to see you. And another thing about that, since I brought it up and we're talking about it, one of the reasons that some of these robes were used, moose hair elk robes, one of the reasons they used them or liked them was they retained that heat because the hollow hair allowed them to be more insulated, more insulation power. Insulative? You know what I mean. They kept you warmer. Anyway, and the cloth on the right is a breech cloth. And I've had a couple of those too, but I never got Brenda to bead me one like that. Mine were just usually blue or red. Made out of the same cloth, wool. I don't think I ever wore a cotton breech cloth. And here's some more examples. I put that bag in there twice. Dang it. See, that's what happens when I'm not thinking straight. But the moccasins are lovely. They have some of the best looking Eastern style moccasins in this collection I've ever seen. Not just the beadwork, but the sewing and the design. These are Ottawa. I put this in here because you don't see it so much, the decoration. There are beads on the stem, and there's an example of the stem.
That's a pipe.
That's a pipe. And this pipe is supposed to be Joseph Brandt's pipe, or one of his pipes. And I didn't realize, he lived up into the 1800s, and Joseph Brandt was if you've ever studied history, Joseph Brandt was the son of an English, I wouldn't say nobleman, an English Indian agent kind of guy. He came over here and learned to work with the natives, and was highly involved in bringing them onto the British side as warriors. Joseph Brandt continued that idea even during the American Revolution. So Joseph Brandt fought along with the British against the Americans. But this was a pipe that was related to him. I just had to include that. Now we move to the Great Plains a little bit, and we still got a little bit of floral design, but these are, I believe, these are supposed to be Nez pears. I don't know if you've seen a lot of. Oh, he can't hear me. Well, I'll go ahead and read what he said while Mark's talking. He said, after the soldiers left, we returned to our ruined homes. Several teepees had been burned or otherwise ruined. Much had been carried away, and many objects destroyed or badly damaged. Brass buckets, always carefully kept by the women, lay battered, smashed. Growing gardens trampled and destroyed. Nearly all of our horses were taken, and every hoof of cattle was driven away. And this was Pio Jolicket. I'm not saying that right, probably. I don't know if he realizes he's still muted or not. There you are.
I'm unmuted now. My dogs are barking.
Oh, okay. Well, they're fine.
Well, my granddogs are barking.
So these are supposed to be Nez pears, Mark. Have you ever seen them use any beadwork that was?
They do a lot of floral stuff.
They
wouldn't be considered a plains people.
No, that's true. They shouldn't be, but
they were like
included.
Western Great Basin.
Yeah, and I've got some of that too here in a minute.
Idaho, Washington, Oregon country, and they were fond of floral beadwork. And it's interesting to me that, like, you find the floral stuff, say, from Iowa east, and then you pick it up again in western Idaho, all the way to the coast. And in between, they didn't do much of this floral stuff. They do now because people like it. But
yeah, I wonder if that's because the plains didn't have as much floral stuff to go by in a way.
Maybe.
Nearly the plant diversity. I mean, it's diverse in its own way, but it's mostly grasses on the plains, and you get a few other stuff, but not like in the east or the west.
Well, it was probably had some practical reason that it just was easier to, do a lazy stitch or whatever kind of beadwork on the plains than it was
the floral. And you're right, these are in the wrong group, but that's all right. We're still going to talk. We're going to talk about them either way, but the beadwork is just
nice looking moccasins, though.
Yeah, those are a nice pair. Remind me a little bit of Pat Tierney moccasins in a way.
Yep, those. And
the way
that would be considered a woman's moccasin. Those high top. Women tended to wear those more than men. No, I don't know why, but men's moccasins didn't have that big cuff on them typically, unless you were in the Southwest or somewhere.
Yeah, that was different. I know I've worn my Pat Tierney moccasins in hunting many times, actually, and they've held up pretty well so far. I got a pair back here that I got that must have been fairly new towards the end of when they were around, or I was around them or something.
I've made 50 pair of moccasins since the last time I saw a Pat Tierney moccasin. So I wear them every day. I got them on right now. I can't lift my leg that high anymore.
Quit, old man. You're going to hurt yourself. Anyway, moving down through here, we got some stuff from the southern plains. We got some Comanche. It's a peyote fan, which that part's not important. I just wanted the fan. Look at the beadwork on the handle of that. And I mean, that's just gorgeous, the beadwork itself. And that is supposed to be from 1890. And these are documented. These are Smithsonian exhibits, so I believe them. And we got some Blackfoot with northern pagan or pagan or however how you say it. Decoration over here. And this, remember I mentioned the mirror a minute ago. This is how important a mirror would be. They would actually spend time to make a case for their mirror. And that's what's in the board on this bag. This came out of Alberta, Canada. It's made out of wood, coyote fur, hide, glass beads, brass tacks. I don't know. They got pigment on there, but I'm not sure what they used. I don't know what dyed.
They dyed that.
The fringe,
maybe that on the fringe right there.
And here's that bag. It was on the first page, and that's supposed to be a Walla Walla pouch. And it's buffalo hide in this case. Pony. That's Mark. Like Mark said, they used a lot of pony beads for other things. This is pony beads. You can see how much bigger they are. You can actually see the individual beads. And the shirt on the right is spotted tails, or associated with supposed to be spotted tails. Whoever collected it or got it said it was, I guess, from Fort Laramie in Wyoming country.
Centigleska.
I was going to get you to say that because I don't say it as well. Centigleska. But
that's quill work. All that's quill work on his shirt.
Yeah, that's quill work in this case, right? Well, actually, I thought there were beads right here along the edge.
Well, maybe, but it looks like
glass beads, human hair, porcupine. Yeah, it's got both. It's got, but mostly quill, but it does have beads around the edges. This was collected by Brigadier General, then Second Lieutenant Charles G. Sawtell, and he supposedly got it from Spotted Tail. Spotted Tail is a big deal for if you've never studied the Plains culture or the Indians from out there or the war or any of that stuff, the history. He was at one point a major leader amongst the Lakota. And we got some more stuff here from the Nez Perce on that bow case, which I think is absolutely beautiful. And it's made out of otter skins. And this is what I'd like. I'd like to have, not this fancy, but I'd like to have a bow case kind of a thing for ashes to go in. This has actually got hide, it's got wool, it's got otter fur, it's got muslin, it's got glass beads, silk ribbons. It's got a whole potpourri of trade goods on this one. And I got that pagan mirror. How did I get so much stuff doubled up in here? I'm sorry, guys. Another Walla Walla, Oregon, Northwest. I got stuff all mixed up in here, actually. Deer hide glass beads, cowrie shells. You and I talked about cowrie shells a day or two ago. Cowrie shells are different from the cones. You can see them along the front of this dress. They're more like a small conch shell. Nah, not a conch shell. I don't know what they're like. They're cowrie shells, but they're little mollusk shells. They don't tend to be spiraled like a snail shell or something. They're more rounded. But they were also a major trade item in some areas. Now, this hat was an interesting find because this hat is also in I believe it's in Helsinki. but it's made. It was made. They're pretty sure it was made on the West Coast, which makes sense because it's got those. Remember those dentaladium shells? It's got those on it. It's got some beads. The I can't remember what they said it was. It's made out of spruce root, so it's almost well. It could have come from Finland, I suppose, but it's supposed to be. I don't know how to pronounce this either. Chagach Eskimo. That's where they think it came from, but it's in a collection somewhere else, and it was collected in 1846, probably off a sailing ship because countries sailed to the West Coast from all over Europe at some point or another to trade for otter furs and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think they built those out of. That's probably the one spruce root hat. Typically they used. I can't see it. Typically they used birch bark,
Well, it could be.
and then they sewed it with spruce root as the thread, and it's got dentalium shells on it.
Yeah, and beads.
I mean, it's definitely a Northwest Coast, Tlingit or Eskimo, somewhere north, Western Canada, right on the coast.
Interesting,
Looks like.
interesting thought just entered my mind. This is a West Coast, upper North America, Western North America. I mean, coastline kind of hat,
Looks like Japanese.
and it looks like it came out of the Far East, which might go back to the story. The thought of Asians coming across the land bridge kind of thing. So cultures don't go completely far apart, or they somehow grew back together. It depends on how you look at it, I guess. And I put this headboard in here because I wanted to bring up another one of my favorite topics, and that's safely carrying children in your car and automobiles, car seats. Anyway, I just put that in there. But I thought I knew Mark would appreciate that. I brought up car seats. These are just absolutely lovely. That the park on the far left is Inuit, and you can see it's a parka, and it's got a lot of beadwork on it. It's made out of caribou skin. That would have been probably pretty heavy to wear around, so it wouldn't have been something you probably might not have worn every day. There was a quote made by someone from a lady that was from that tribe who made things like this that said she just liked the sound of beads when she walked. I thought that was kind of interesting. The dress on the right is supposed to be from Shoshone area in western Wyoming, I suppose. Well, he's gone, but and it's deer hide, smoked deer hide, deer tan, brain tan deer hide. We've mentioned this before, but natives tan their hides with brains, and there's sort of a joke that was said by people who did this sort of thing that every animal tends to have just enough brains to tan their own hide, and so brains were used for this. Marks used brains to tan hides, and then usually they were hung in the top of teepees or lodges and smoked, or sometimes just put around smoky fires, but they were often put up in teepees and just left up there for a while, and they got smoked that way. And the smoking helped to condition the leather and make it a little bit more waterproof, and it's cool, and it smells so heavenly.
Yeah, it makes it so you can re-soften it easily.
Yeah.
It's got something to do with how that smoke penetrates the fibers of the hide. And Brenda asked an interesting question that they would it might put a whole line of beads in that was the wrong color, and it wasn't necessarily a maker's mark. It was a way of saying that only the creator was perfect.
Sort of like not having a perfect rug from Persia.
Yeah, it was like they would put the wrong colored bead in a string of beads or whatever and sew it down. And it's like we can't make this perfect because we're not perfect.
Which is an interesting.
Which is what I've heard.
Michelle, it's funny you should say that. And when we used to go to Friendship, and they always there was always a area. There was an area across the road that we call the sheep sheds, but that's where a lot of the traders hung out, and that's where they sold all kinds of things that were about muzzle loading and rendezvousing and traditional stuff, and stuff that maybe you could say is rendezvousing adjacent, perhaps.
Less historically accurate.
What's that?
Less historically
Yeah, there you go. Less historically accurate.
Like Dyer's mocks and Minnetonka moccasins, you'd find both of them there.
Well, I remember there was always a booth of Minnetonka stuff that they were always there.
Yep, with the fringe sides on them, and then Carl Dyer was there selling. I think he actually had a storefront that
he did. One of them did
in town.
Well, weren't they from that
area? They were
from
Friendship. Both Carl and his brother were from Friendship, and one of them sold moccasins downtown, and one of them sold them at the sheep pens.
And they had a falling out, and eventually had their own.
And both of them made historically inaccurate moccasins.
But they were very popular.
They were very sturdy.
Yeah.
And popular. But it'd be like if you went on a muzzleloader hunt and you took a Nightingale inline muzzleloader and you're hunting with a guy with a flintlock.
Yeah, big difference.
Big difference.
I always thought that it looked to me like those moccasins would have been slick to walk in because they were smooth. Usually the ones they used that
and hot and
a lot different than traditional moccasins, but they were popular amongst the folks that did muzzleloading, and a lot of people took them. I think accepted them as traditional footwear, even though they really weren't.
And they could walk on them gravel roads and
oh yeah, because they were thick and
they didn't have to worry about hurting their little feetsy.
For example. Do you remember the couple that we met? They were staying in the primitive area. This would have been early when I first started going up there. And I remember they came by our tent as people often, our teepee as people often did, and sat down and had a cup of coffee or ate a bite cut a piece of slab off the meat, whatever. But there was the guy, and we saw he walked by us every day, and he would go over and shoot, and he'd come back and he would change clothes sometimes when he was shooting on the other side. And I'm not sure we got talking to him, and he was a musician and a performer by trade. And he came by one day and he was wearing moccasins, and he sat down with us and he was having a cup of coffee. And he said, oh my God, he said, my calves are killing me. And we said, well, what, we were talking to him about, and he said, I play music and I work on stage. And he said, I usually wear like high heel boots, not high heel boots, but higher heel boots, like cowboy boots are sometimes. Some cowboy boots have higher heels than others. And he said, that's what I wear all the time. And he said, I'm wearing these flat sole moccasins. And they're absolutely killing me. And that's true. If you're not used to wearing shoes like that, they really make a difference. I'll never forget him sitting down there and saying, oh, my calves are killing me.
He was stretching out muscle and tendon that hadn't been stretched in a long time.
Real nice guy. Him and his wife both were there, I believe. Yeah, they were. And they both dressed in primitive clothing, but they also changed and went over the other side. And when he was shooting, because it seems like he was. Oh, you know what? He may have been the guy that was shooting the slug gun that I went over and he let me shoot one time. Do you remember that?
I don't remember either one of them.
I went over and shot his long range slug gun at the 300-yard targets. He let me come over and shoot one day, and I just shot it 2 or 3 times, and he was a real nice guy. He was somebody who still had the last little bit of whale oil that they lubed their paper patches with, the real stuff that was left over from God knows how old it was. Anyway, that might be the last official slide.
Kay made a good point that she knows it's not true, but that they were taught that they chewed on their hides to soften it.
Now that is true, isn't it?
That is total 100% pure, unadulterated BS.
No, nobody chewed.
They didn't chew on their hides. They used tools. They didn't use their teeth. They used tools.
Okay, well,
now, maybe in the far white north, the Inuits maybe they're the only ones I can find that actually maybe occasionally use their teeth to pull and stretch, but not nowhere else. It was, they staked those hides out. They put them on the ground.
I know how they did all that.
Put them on a frame and they softened them with a tool.
In other words, they pounded on them.
Well, no, you just push and stretch and push and stretch and push and stretch and push and stretch, and it suades the hide and softens it. And you got to do that until it's dry, because you put it on the frame wet, and you got to soften until that hide is bone dry, and then, which is easier out here than it is in the East, but. And there were some people that used bark for tanning, not brain.
True. I know. I said that, but I won't.
But I mean, bark tanning is a whole different process.
Yeah, it's a different thing. I'm going to pull up. I'm going to see if I can pull this up. This is. I recommend. I put the link in here. If you're interested, again, you can go see this stuff. The Smithsonian's exhibit is online, and I'm going to show you just a little bit. This is where I got some of my material today, obviously. And it's called The Infinity of Nations, and you can see all the different places they have stuff from, but I was primarily concentrating on this center group right here. For example, I didn't show much from the Southwest, but there's few things in here from the Southwest, and most of it. And the reason I didn't have it in this show so much was it's mostly pottery and things made out of hard stuff. They didn't do it down there, but they were certainly amazing weavers and amazing art, made amazing pottery and that sort of thing. So I mean, they all had their own skill set for sure. And again, they traded. So I would highly recommend, if you're interested, go to because I've not shown nearly everything they've got posted here. And I meant to show this a little bit. This has got I think this has got quills and beads on it too, I think. Yeah. This is sort of like a warrior's history. They're calling it an exploit robe, but if you knew how to interpret, you'd know what the lines meant. Mark may know more some of this than I do, but you can see there's battles happening down here, and I don't know who this one, if this is associated with
Is it
anybody.
Mandan?
Uh,
Is it Mandan?
well, it says it's Absaloki. Apsa. I don't know how to pronounce that.
Which is crow.
Is that crow? Okay.
Absoluki.
Absoluki? Okay.
And, or Absorica.
Well, I knew Psorica. I would have known it was crow. I
Our
didn't know
our our youngest granddaughter's first name is
first name. Yeah.
Absorica. That robe is a buffalo robe,
Yeah.
and it's been dehaired and brain tanned, and then I don't know why they dehaired them, but they did some of them. Maybe just because it was hot in the summertime,
Maybe. Yeah.
and then did that really cool quill work with circles. They don't say who owned that.
No, this one doesn't. It's not attributed to anybody, but you can see great battles were happening on there.
Yeah, there are a lot of horses on there.
A lot of horses, and this is how that certain warriors, certain men, their legacy was passed down. And honestly, we know about a lot of these guys from things like this. It's exploit robes like this that we learn about. We know a lot about the Battle of Little Bighorn, for example. It wasn't necessarily taught to us originally. Just things like that. Anyway, this again, I really recommend looking. I don't know if people are interested in Native American art like this or not, but I know personally, sometime in the 1980s, I was sent to school. I've mentioned this before. I was sent to school, and I believe I was in Kansas for this. Might have been Oklahoma City. And I woke up one morning on a Saturday. I had the day off. I didn't have to be in school that day, and I had a car, which was unusual. I didn't get a car, so I must have been in Kansas. Now that I think about it, in Wichita.
They don't have cars in Oklahoma.
No, I didn't know. They didn't always allow us a rental car. The company. That time I got a rental car because I was out there for a long time, and so I grabbed my camera gear, which I always had with me. I grabbed my camera gear and I jumped in my rental car and I took off across the city because I woke up and looked out my window to the east and the sky was full of balloons, hot air balloons. And I thought, oh my God, I got to go. I got to find them. I got to take pictures because I'd never seen that kind of a display, that kind of an event happening. We didn't have those back here. At least we hadn't up until then. We had every once in a while there's some back east now, and I saw a couple in Nashville. But anyway, and what really happened on that trip, and I wish I could find the pictures. I've got film, and they may be in the house now. So Brenda, this is something else we need to look at when we go through the pictures. I just stumbled upon. I pulled into the parking lot, I think, and lo and behold, it was a Native American museum, and I think it's like the Native American Museum of the Southwest or something. I can't remember what the title is, or the Great Plains. And it was just full of history that I'd never seen, beadwork and clothing and just all kinds of real things that I never had seen before in real. And I just was so emotional that I think I donated like all the cash I had in my pocket or something that day. I couldn't walk out of there without leaving money because it was just, they were asking, for donations, and it was just, it just blew me away. It was so emotional for me, at least. It was really cool. They had some really great stuff in there. And this is what I would have called a war shirt. I think they just referred to it as a. They say this was supposed to be associated with Crazy Horse. Mark, what do you think?
That was his shirt wearer's shirt.
That's it. Okay.
they, they gave special responsibility to 4 or 5 young men, and you're the you're the protector of the people, kind of a thing.
Right.
And I think that was his shirt wearer shirt, but it might have been something he had later on. I don't know.
And that's what, and that's how it was.
It's the right style of shirt for that. So
That's oh, I was going to say something else. Oh, and they did. That's how they referred to it, as a shirt wearer shirt. His shirt, the shirt wearer's shirt. He didn't. They didn't necessarily have a name like, okay, you're the guardian of the children, or you're the guardian of the women. It was, you were a shirt wearer, and that meant something, and that was very. It was prestigious, and it was important, and it was just, it was a big deal. So, and that was supposed to be Crazy Horses. So I'd like to say, since they're saying it, I hope it was. Let's see where they got it. Well, it came out of South Dakota. Didn't say who collected it. Oh, Major John G. Burke, or Bro.
Oh, so that wouldn't have been his shirt wearer shirt. Burke was he wrote some pretty cool. He was a army officer that wrote. I can't remember what the. I have the book. I can't remember the title of it. He wrote about.
I'm gonna see if I can find it real quick. While I keep talking.
He wrote about fighting the Apaches in Arizona. He was stationed down there for a while, and then he ended up in the Northern Plains.
He wrote a book called On the Border with Crook.
On the Border with Crook, that's it. And part of the book is about the Apache Wars, and part of the book is about Crazy Horse. And Crazy Horse, he was actually friendly with Crazy Horse. So,
cool, good.
Yeah, I mean, he was a guy that believed in knowing about the people that he was maybe had to fight or didn't have to fight. He appeared to be a pretty good army officer.
Wow, here's an interesting one. It's supposed to be his book. He wrote a book called Human Odor and Human Urine in the Rights of a Religious or Semi-Religious Character.
Same guy?
Same guy.
Never heard about that one.
Me either. That's interesting.
But I do have On the Border with Crook.
Sounds like a book I need to put on my list. Hint, hint, Brenda. See, Brenda, it's Mark's fault.
I did not. Just get it off the. I'm sure you can get it from with one credit from some online deal.
I'm sure I probably can. Oh, this is a cradle board, isn't it? Speaking of safety vehicle chairs. Yep.
Yeah, you can hang that. You can hang that right over the elkhorn part of your saddle.
Yeah.
And let your young'un just ride up there on top of that pony with you.
This one's supposed to be Kootenai.
I can't tell you how many photos I've seen of like women, and they rode those real high cantle and pommel saddles that had like a horn on them, both ends, and they'd have like a young'un hanging in a cradle board. They're horseback, and the kids like basically looped over the horn, and off they go across the prairie.
Off they go. Choctaw coat. That makes sense. That looks southeastern to me.
Yep.
I think I've got, well, maybe I don't here. I had some other southeastern stuff I thought. These are too, I believe. Coshata Sash. This is out of Louisiana. But there's that's beaded. In case you can't see it, that's all beaded.
Yeah, and that style is that double whirl. That's definitely from the southeast.
This is for somebody's very long hair. This is the wear and it's supposed to be kickapoo. Now this says Oklahoma, Mark. Were kickapoo from that area, or had they been put in Oklahoma by that point?
They were put there.
That's what I thought.
They were actually, I think originally they were like southern Illinois, northwest Kentucky kind of part of the world.
I was kind of thinking too. I didn't think they were from Oklahoma.
But there's a whole bunch of them in Texas, and there's a bunch of them in Oklahoma. They were definitely, when all the eastern tribes they moved to the Indian territories,
Right, into the territories.
and some of them didn't stay, and some of them refused to go and stayed where they were from, like the Seminoles and the absentee Shawnees and part of the Cherokee.
That's why we have an eastern band of Cherokee now, and the rest of the nation's in Oklahoma. This is another pouch, and it's interesting to me again because you got two sides of the shoulder strap, and the beadwork, much like a pipe bag, is different.
Yeah.
And that's two or three of these bags I've been looking at. I've noticed that this morning. I didn't notice it before, but man, there's a lot of beads on that. So, Brenda, get any ideas? If you need to make me something, here you go. Carol got to go. I need to go to the bank before they close. I'll be listening in the car. Well, thank you, Carol. I'm about done. Now I'm just showing the stuff out of the museum, so that I just wanted to give people a taste in case they ever thought they might be interested in going back and looking.
Yeah, and I'm gonna take off too. So
you about ready to go too? Well, let me close this part out. Let me get rid of it. And
go get started with something, even if it's wrong.
Yeah, I probably ought to do that too. I don't know if I'll get much done today, but I'm going to try to get a little bit done. Anyway, thanks, guys. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it, as always. See you next weekend, I hope. Talk to you before that.
Yeah, I hope.
Oh, happy Father's Day tomorrow, buddy.
Oh, you too.
I forgot about that. Carol, I just read Carol's comment, and she reminded me there. I forgot about it being Father's Day. Pokeberries have been used to dye a lot of things, actually. And trust me, once you dye it, it ain't changing. That stuff stays. My mom's all but beat me because I got that stuff in my clothes before. Anyway, Marcus, you take care, and I will see you next week. And I said I'll talk to you before that, I hope. See ya. And guys, I'm going to let everybody go because I got a couple of things I may need to run. Actually, I've got to go mail something for. Got Brenda a new phone this week, and got to take her old phone down to the UPS station and mail it back so I get credit for it, and so the other phone don't cost me nothing, which is a hell of a deal considering how much phones cost these days. No, that's okay, Tina. Hopefully everything's okay otherwise. I know you've been busy with Danny, so I get that. Chuck, hope you're watching some hockey. It's been some really good games. Oh my Lord. They've been heartbreakers or heart attacks, whichever way you want to look at it. Don't know if Mike and Diana are still here. I may have missed them leaving. If I did, I'll apologize later. But if you're still here, guys, thanks for coming in. Kay, as always, thank you for dropping in. I hope you have a great weekend. Hope everybody has a great rest of your weekend. I don't know weather. Sun's shining here now, but it looks like it's gonna. I think we're supposed to get some more thunder showers. We'll see. Maybe they won't be too bad. Anyway, guys, and that's just looking at Tim's window weather forecast. That's not looking at weather. Anyway, guys, thanks for being here. As always, love y'all. Take care, and hopefully see you again next week. Oh, it's raining in New York again. That's kind of how I felt, Tina. Anyway, last couple of weeks have been seems like more rain than not. Anyway, see you next time, guys. Bye bye.